Yeah.
Well, I got to hear about your week besides selling your house. My gosh, that's big news. I bet you were
I couldn't
shocked.
believe there were so many people lined up.
It's kind of unnerving to have people go through your house.
Yeah.
Who sold your house for you?
NP Dodge.
You like them? That's who my mom bought and sold her house
They
to.
sold my little one in Council Bus, and they did a good job.
Do they do a good job?
Yes, they did.
Do they take a percentage?
Oh yeah, you lose several $1,000s.
Ooh.
But it's a humble little house, so.
Oh, I'm sure it's a beautiful house.
I mean, it's pretty to me, of course, and it's kind of pretty outside, but it's small.
Beautiful.
Got 3 little bedrooms. It's got 2 bathrooms, so one in the basement. And the basement's finished, so.
That is so nice to have all those rooms. And
yeah, I really didn't use 2 of the rooms. I just had stuff in them, you know. Yeah, we better.
Oh, here we go.
I'm not
Happy about it.
It's kind of crazy over there.
Absolutely, the lovely ladies for the Saturday morning. I was ready and ready to go for you. And it looks like they are ready and ready to go this morning as well. And I'm going to hand it on over to them in the studio, and they're going to get right on. They're live waiting for you.
Thank you, Emily. Happy Saturday, April 2nd. Well, we survived April Fool's Day, Jean.
Yes, we did.
And production halted to add the right sewer to the plate design. So that's one headline. And Part of My Son Is Still Alive is another headline from this morning's. And we're going to start with some international news. And it says, from Athens, Greece, ready or not, refugees to be returned.
Wow.
Greece is pressing ahead with plans to start deporting immigrants and refugees back to Turkey next week, despite mounting concern from the United Nations and human rights organizations that Syrians could be denied proper protection, while some are allegedly even being forced back into their war-torn country. Friday, lawmakers in Athens voted 169 to 107 to draft back legislation fast-tracked through Parliament to allow returns to start as soon as Monday. The operation could see migrants and refugees who arrived on Greek islands after March 20th put on boats and sent back to Turkey. Several Greek officials with knowledge of the planning told the AP that deportations were likely to start from the island of Lesbos, with migrants from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other countries whose asylum claims were considered inadmissible. The transport officials said will be carried out under heavy security escort with 1 police minder for every migrant, using buses that will travel from the island detention camps and are likely to board straight onto chartered vessels. The officials asked not to be identified because the plans for the returns have not yet been officially announced. The migrant deportations are backed by the European Union following its recent agreement with Turkey and triggered more violence at detention camps in Greece. Authorities in the Greek island of Chios said several hundred people pushed their way out of the overcrowded detention camp and staged a peaceful protest on the island's main town, chanting "Freedom, freedom," and "Turkey, no." The rally followed overnight clashes between Syrian and Afghan detainees that left 5 people injured. More protests are planned on the island today. In Geneva, Switzerland, the UN Refugee Agency urged Greece and Turkey to provide further safeguards for asylum seekers before the returns begin, noting that conditions were worsening by the day for the more than 4,000 people being held in detention camps and on Greek islands. And rights group Amnesty International, which is strongly opposed to the EU-Turkey agreement from the start, said in a report Friday that it had evidence of Turkish authorities rounding up Syrians and sending them back across the border to their conflict-torn country. The group said Turkey has been expelling around 100 men, women, and children every day since mid-January.
Wow.
EU leaders have willfully ignored the simplest facts. Turkey is not a safe country for Syrian refugees, Amnesty's Europe and Central Asia director said. Greek officials did not respond to the criticism directly, but insisted the rights of detained asylum seekers, of course, are being protected. I assure you that we will strictly observe human rights procedures, not what people are inventing, but what is required under circumstances, said Migration Affairs Minister Ioannis Mouzalis, and he said that to Parliament. Clashes on Chios were the latest in the series of violent incidents at shelters and gathering points across Greece, where more than 52,000 immigrants and refugees are stranded following EU-supported Balkan border closures. More than 11,000 of those stranded remain camped at a Greek Macedonian border, ignoring calls by the government to move voluntarily to organize shelters. Many say they have heard conditions in other camps are worse, and they fear that if they might find they're forced to move. Karzan Karman, a 28-year-old Iraqi from near the city of Mosul, said he still hoped the borders would open. We are waiting for hope. Where the place is very sad for people, we don't know what to do, he said, standing by a queue of people lining up for food and baby milk.
And leaders are told don't be complacent about nuclear security. World leaders declared progress Friday in safeguarding nuclear materials sought by terrorists. Even President Barack Obama acknowledged the task was far from finished. Closing out a nuclear security summit, Obama warned of a persistent and harrowing threat, terrorists getting their hands on a nuclear bomb. He urged fellow leaders not to be complacent about risk of catastrophe, saying that such an attack would change our world. I'm the first to acknowledge that a great deal of work remains, he said. Despite their calls for further action, the roughly 50 leaders assembled announced that this year's gathering would be the last of this kind. This year, deep concerns about terrorism were the commanding focus. Leaders grappled with the notion that the next Paris or Brussels could involve an attack with a nuclear bomb. Obama said of the terrorists, there's no doubt that if these madmen ever get their hands on nuclear bombs, they most certainly would use it to kill as many people as possible. So far, no terrorists have obtained a nuclear bomb, but global efforts to secure the material are not always adequate. Al-Qaeda has sought nuclear materials, the Islamic State has deployed chemical weapons, and extremists linked to the Brussels and Paris attacks were found to have spied on a top Belgium nuclear official. Throughout the two-day summit, growing fears about nuclear terrorism tempered other more positive signs of the world's coming together. Obama spent part of the summit huddled with leaders of South Korea and Japan. Similarly, Obama's sit-down with Chinese President Xi Jinping of China offered the two strategic rivals a chance to illustrate mutual concern. Undeterred, North Korea only hours later fired a short-range missile into the sea. It tried to jam navigation GPS signals in South Korea. It is precisely the kind of act that the South Korean president had warned could happen. Latin America and the Caribbean are now free of highly enriched uranium. Fusel materials such as highly enriched uranium and separate plutonium are necessary ingredients to make nuclear bombs. The United States, in newly declared statistics, said its own national inventory of highly enriched uranium has dropped. U.S. and Japan announced that they finished removing hundreds of kilograms of weapons-grade material from a Japanese research reactor. Still, frustration over the slow pace of reducing nuclear stockpiles shadowed the summit. The absence of key players, especially the Russians, further underscored the lack of unanimity confronting global efforts. After 6 years of prodding by Obama and others, the global stockpile of material remains in the thousands of metric tons.
Thank you, Jean. And from Brussels, struck by suicide bombers that last week, the airport known as the Heart of Europe has stopped beating temporarily, causing headaches for thousands of business and vacation travelers and painful financial losses for Belgium's capital and tourism industry. It's still unclear when the Brussels airport will reopen, but a key hurdle appeared to have been cleared late Friday when police unions, which had threatened to strike, reached a preliminary deal with government negotiators on how to bolster security and minimize more violence. The agreement, which must be formally approved by both sides, calls in part for hiring 200 Additional police officers, said Stephanie Deldeque, an official with the CSC Public Service Union. The Belgium government official, speaking on condition of anonymity, told the Associated Press things now appeared on track for passenger service to resume at a reduced level on Sunday morning.
Oh.
According to airport officials, the arrivals area was only slightly damaged. The attacks were claimed by the Islamic State. In the city center, a multi-faith wreath laying ceremony was held Friday to demonstrate Belgium's unity in the face of extremist violence. And in some world briefs from Egypt, from the Valley of the Kings, Egypt on Friday invited archaeologists and experts from around the world to examine new data from extensive radar scanning conducted on King Tutankhamun's tomb to explore the theory that secret chambers could be hidden behind its walls. The open invitation to the conference in Cairo in May, issued by the Antiquities Minister at a press conference just outside the tomb, aims to bring broader scientific rigor to what so far has only been tantalizing clues. The new exploration was prompted by a theory by a British Egyptologist that undiscovered chambers lie behind the tomb's western and northern walls, and that they likely contain the tomb of Queen Nefertiti, one of the pharaonic, I've never heard of that word, Egypt's most, of course, famous figures. If new chambers were discovered, it would likely be the biggest discovery in Egyptology since Howard Carter first uncovered the King's Tomb, 303,000-year-old burial chamber, and its treasures in 1922. And from Havana, nearly twice as many Cuban migrants reached the U.S. by foot and sea in the last 3 months of 2015 as in the same period earlier last year. The northbound exodus swelling after the restoration of diplomatic relations and amid fears of loss of migration privileges. Department of Homeland Security figures show about 17,000 Cubans reached the United States from October through December. Slightly more than 9,200 Cuban migrants arrived during the same time in 2014. Some Cubans fear they could lose privileges that now let them stay in the United States if they reach American soil, a policy originally based on the assumption that those fleeing Cuba were largely political refugees. And from India, Indian police on Friday detained 5 officials of a company constructing an overpass that collapsed onto a neighborhood, killing at least 24 people and injuring 80. Rescuers cleared most of the crumbled concrete and twisted metal rods a day after the collapse. They have pulled out 67 people alive, but do not expect to find any more survivors. The officials are being questioned over possible culpable homicide, punishable by life imprisonment, and criminal breach of trust, which carries a prison sentence of up to 7 years, police said. And finally, from Monrovia, Liberia, a new case of Ebola has been confirmed in Liberia, the World Health Organization said Friday. The country had been declared free from Ebola transmissions in January. Health authorities at the Redemption Hospital in the densely populated New Crewtown suburbs of Monrovia said a 30-year-old woman died of Ebola. The woman died Thursday night, the head of the Liberia's Ebola response person said. We are investigating the source. Liberia was the first declared free of disease in May.
Wow. And Portland City is rocked by heavy metal pollution. Fiercely proud of its reputation as one of the most environmentally minded cities in America, Portland is reeling from the discovery of poisonous heavy metal hotspots in the air and ground. Amid the crisis, 2 top state air regulators have resigned. Residents are rushing to the doctor to get tested, and politicians in this city of 600,000 are scrambling to do damage control. Federal officials have also launched a nationwide review of small art glassmaking factories, the suspected source of contamination. Wow. This is very much at odds with our view of ourselves, said the mayor. Air pollution hotspots with high levels of cadmium, arsenic, and chromium were detected recently around 2 makers of colored glass. Emissions around one of the factories contained arsenic at 150 times the state level of safety. Oh my gosh. Long-term exposure to such substance is linked to lung, bladder cancer, kidney, and other ailments. Both glass makers have voluntarily suspended use of the metals. They have been using them for years without being regulated. As testing continues, state and city health officials have tried to reassure residents, but many people aren't buying it. Jessica Applegate, who launched the Eastside Portland Air Coalition with her neighbors, wonders whether her daughter's medical problems stem from the heavy metals. She lives right in the hot spot. My daughter, who's 16, has chronic kidney, urine issues, and she's terrified. The furor has been especially painful because Portland is often called the greenest city in America. Not far from one of the city's pollution hotspots, Governor Kate Brown a few weeks ago signed the first state law in the nation to order the phasing out of coal to generate electricity. The crisis has exposed what some activists say are gaping holes in regulation of environment. Smaller glass makers such as Bullseye Glass and other businesses under suspicion are exempt from this type of environmental protection. State officials can impose their own rules, such as requiring furnace filters, but are not required to do so. Adding to the uproar, department officials admitted recently they knew of high levels of heavy metal emissions in Portland 10 years ago, but they took no action. The glass makers weren't identified as the culprits until after the U.S. Forest Service began discovering the hot spots. More than a year ago, through samples of moss from trees throughout Portland, a common pollution monitoring method in Europe was used in Portland. The Environmental Agency then did its own air test and found the hot spots. Linda George, a professor of environmental science, said that when it comes to heavy metals, the EPA essentially tells states, you decide on your own what the risks are. EPA officials said in a statement that the Federal Clean Air Act gives state and local agencies the primary role. EPA is now reviewing more than a dozen other small glass makers in several states. Oregon, meanwhile, is working to close its gaps and identify other troublesome areas around the city. Who would have known that glass makers, we have those down the old market.
Interesting. Very interesting. Arsenic is so bad. I wonder if it's gotten in their sunk into their water tables. And from Baghdad, tens of thousands of trapped Iraqi civilians have stalled the government's advance in the battle against the Islamic State in the western Anbar province, the spokesman for Iraq's elite counterterrorism said Friday. The civilians are trapped between the Iraqi force lines and the Islamic State extremists, hunkered down in the center of the town of Hit, 85 miles west of Baghdad, an official told the AP. Meanwhile, the Islamic State claimed responsibility for 2 suicide car bombings that killed 11 security forces late Thursday, southeast of the city of Mosul, which was controlled by the Islamic State. Early Thursday, Iraqi forces relaunched an offensive on Hit under cover of heavy security U.S.-led coalition airstrikes, said the counterterrorism chief. Over the past week, the coalition launched 17 airstrikes in and around Hit, according to the Pentagon. The town lies along the Islamic State supply line, linking the extremist group's fighters in Iraq to those neighboring in Syria. Iraqi commanders have said that retaking the town would be a key to building on their momentum after retaking the Anbar province capital of Ramadi earlier this year and linking up government forces to the west and north of Baghdad. The commanders are making a plan to evacuate the families. The Iraqi military is conducting what the U.S.-led coalition describes as a shaping operation ahead of a planned Mosul offensive.
Uh-huh.
The Iraqi forces have pushed the Islamic State out of the number of villages around the Makmar base. Wednesday, Iraqi forces celebrated as they took the Anbar provincial town of Qubasa from the Islamic State. The Makmar base and other frontline Iraqi positions southwest of Mosul have increasingly come under attack from the Islamic State as the Iraqi troops built up the area. After storming across Iraq in the summer of 2014 and overrunning Mosul, the Islamic State still controls large swaths of territory in the country's north and west.
Wow. And mammograms could help predict clogged arteries in the heart.
I'm excited to hear what this says.
Yeah, I think I'll go get one. Yeah. A woman's routine mammogram is a bulwark against dying of breast cancer, which strikes 1 in 8 women. But new research suggests that with little extra cost or effort, a woman's mammogram could also tell whether she's being stalked by a far more dangerous killer of women, coronary heart disease. Heart disease kills 1 in 4 women, and coronary heart disease, a buildup of plaque in the arteries leading to the heart, is its most common form. But giving a woman warning that she may have dangerous plaque buildup, there might be as easy as asking the radiologist who reads her test what he sees. Doctors meeting this week in a scientific session in Chicago heard about the simple way to wring more life-saving out of the 37 million mammograms done. It was published last week. Turns out that radiologists checking breast images for abnormal masses have always been able to see plaque in the arteries. The question was it meaningful? How often do calcifications in these arteries indicate the presence of disease? They can impede blood flow to the heart, and if they break loose, they cause heart attacks. Radiologists and cardiologists have devised a breast arterialization score for 325 women who had within the same year a mammogram and a CT scan of their chest. The CT scan would show definitely whether the woman had disease, so the study's aim was to determine just how closely the plaque buildup was and what it meant. In those women who had coronary artery calcification, the score from a breast scan predicted 63% of the time. With earlier warnings that plaque could be accumulating in their arteries, more women could take control of their health and take action to prevent heart attacks and strokes. The authors conclude that looking at the blood vessels in the mammogram, and if they indicated heart disease, it would be studied in a larger trial. Doctors have written an accompanying editorial that it's not premature to suggest that radiologists who detect breast calcification could make notes of their findings and send them to the attending physician.
Thank you very much, Jean. That's interesting, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. It's a good one. Very much so.
And production halted to add right sewer to plate design. From Lincoln, Jeff Helt didn't think much about the plate's new license plate when Governor Pete Ricketts unveiled it last week. But then he saw the plate in the World Herald displayed next to the image of the sower on the Nebraska State Capitol and the sower sculpture on the bell tower at Michigan State University. And that's when it dawned on him. It's my sower, he said, and then it's a mistake. Helt, a 43-year-old husband and father from Omaha, said he drew the sower featured on the new plates. He submitted the design in 2002 as part of a state contest that offered citizens a chance to create the 2005 standard plate. As artists quoted in the World Herald suspected, he said Friday, his design is a combination of the state capitol sculpture as well as the bas relief piece at the Michigan State. Both were made by, sculptor Lee Lurie. Helt said that he inadvertently used the Michigan sower as a basis for his design after Google search returned the image. And to be completely honest, he said, I never knew the relief wasn't from the state capitol building until controversy over these new plates began boiling over. I assumed it was on the building somewhere. Yes, I failed as a lifelong Nebraskan.
I'll leave it up to Nebraska.
Helt said he spoke to the World Herald on Friday to put to rest theories that the plate was designed by a Michigan native. People are starting to think it's a conspiracy, and that was that this is someone who thought, I'll get this little snub to Nebraska, he said. At the end of the day, it was just a mistake. Friday afternoon, state officials announced that they would halt production on the plate and would substitute a new design of the sower that more accurately represents Nebraska's version. Helt said he harbors no hard feelings. At least Nebraska will get a capital accurate sewer, he said. Too funny. Helt, who studied graphic design but now works in IT, said he used the Michigan State sewer as a template for the body of his design. He then used the sewer's head on the close-up of the state capitol sewer's head. He took some artistic license to move the placement of one leg, he said. The design featured on the new plate is his, he said, except for a few changes. In his version, the sewer is standing on a flat surface with blue and green landscape in the background. The new plate shows the sewer standing on a pedestal. Helt said he's sorry the design has created so much controversy, but maintains that Nebraska's sewer was his inspiration. It's just funny because I submitted the design back in 2002. I got a letter from then Governor Mike Johann saying, thanks, but no thanks. I never thought anything more of it until, here in the last week. I'm sorry everyone doesn't like it. I think they're nice.
No, that's funny.
It is.
It is something else. Everybody's talking about it. And keeping the homeless in mind. Psychiatric care is added to services offered to people in need at an annual day of help. Colleen Hott stepped behind a black curtain and into relative privacy at Creighton University. Outside the curtain, the giant gym buzzed with the voices of hundreds of homeless people who, like Colleen, had come for this annual day of help. For 9 years, Omaha groups have banded together to put on a one-stop shop event called Project Homeless Connect. The event places all kinds of assistance under one roof, streamlining aid for people in need. So as in the past, Omaha's homeless could get hot meals and showers, dental and medical checks, and targeted service, like special help for veterans and youth. Even a shuttle was provided to take people to and from the Douglas County Courthouse to clear up old warrants. In the midst of all this was someone new, someone representing an important element of homeless care. His name is Dr. Chris Rainville. He is a psychiatrist in training in the Creighton University. He is in a residency program, and he was among other physicians and psychiatric residents who wanted to help. Psychiatrists, boy, my tongue is twisted around today. Psychiatrists can prescribe medication and offer therapy, but that wasn't their role Friday. The cases were too many, and the roles too myriad for that. Instead, Chris and the other specialists did 3 things. They screened for mental illness, they encouraged people in seeking follow-up care, and they helped line that up. Mental illness is a huge factor in homelessness. About a third of the 6,500 homeless people who got help in the network were listed having a medical health condition. Was mental illness a cause of one's homelessness, or could the trauma of losing a home cause mental illness? Being homeless can exacerbate a mental health condition, the doctor said. We do know that being mentally ill and being unmedicated is contributing to homelessness. Friday's event didn't allow for much time to get into Colleen's story. Jade snagged Alex, a dental resident, who gave Colleen a quick look and said that she would probably need a denture. It was time for Chris to step in, the psychiatrist. He said in an interview, it is an inexact science. There's a mystery. Answers on a form do not mean a mental illness is present. Chris gently explained to the woman why she might reconsider some objects. He explained how both medication and meeting with a therapist can help people. He said it was good that Colleen had friends, but someone with extra training could offer more help. Colleen thought she'd give it a try, so Chris and Colleen pushed back the black curtain. They walked past the other residents and homeless people. They walked up to a woman who was taking appointments. But Colleen didn't book an appointment. The clinic she wanted to visit only had immediate openings and wasn't booking far in advance. Would she follow through? It's hard to say. Chris and Colleen seemed okay, stable, and willing to get help. But many homeless people do not like to get help or be around others. But at least for this one day, behind the black curtain, Patient and doctor got together.
I think that's a great service.
It does. It helps, at least for statistics, to know what's out there.
I would think.
Yeah.
And 2 local attorneys had just withdrawn from the Anthony Garcia's defense team, stripping 3 Chicago attorneys of their right to practice in Nebraska, at least for now. Much of the buzz outside Douglas County District Courtroom 316 centered on one question: would any local attorney step up to replace the lawyers who no longer wanted their licenses used by the Mata law firm? Standing in the rotunda, Omaha attorney J. William Gallup doubted it, questioning who would want to touch a hot potato of issues by joining a quadruple murder case. Oh, there'll be someone, a colleague chimed in. Indeed, somebody stepped up. In a motion filed Friday, 2 Omaha attorneys, Jeremy Jorgensen and his law partner David Reed, offered the use of their Nebraska law license to Allison Mata, Robert Mata Jr., and Robert Mata Sr. A third attorney not connected to Jorgensen or Reed, James Owen, also has agreed to allow the Matas to practice under his license, the Matas motion says. The move sets up a hearing Monday to get to the meat of the matter, whether Douglas County District Judge Gary Randall will allow the Matas to continue as Garcia's attorneys after questions have emerged about whether the Matas have committed ethical violations. Garcia, of course, has been charged with the slaying, sorry about this, of 11-year-old Thomas Hunter, 57-year-old Shirley Sherman in 2008, Dr. Roger Brombach and Mary Brombach, both 65, in 2013. Prosecutors' latest allegation is that Allison Mata attempted to poison Garcia's jury pool by telling the World Herald and 2 TV stations that DNA tests on one victim's bandana implicated another man in the slaying. The DNA sample is so mixed and its odds are so insignificant that prosecutors say it doesn't connect anyone to the killings, let alone the man Allison Mata implicated. Douglas County Attorney Don Klein called Mata's statement blatantly false. Klein said Mata's husband, Robert Mata Jr., doubled down on the statement by saying in a motion Thursday that the DNA sample is very strong evidence from which to establish the defendant's innocence. Depending on whether the Matas are allowed to return, the judge could hear a counter motion by the Matas asking the judge to remove the county attorney's office and appoint a special prosecutor. The Matas allege that the Klein has engaged in a series of actions designed to erode the public's view of them. In order to preserve a defendant's right to a fair trial, attorneys are required to follow ethics rules that prohibit certain out-of-court statements, including saying that evidence proves a defendant guilty or innocent. Further high court rulings have ordered attorneys to tread softly when speaking of DNA tests. The Matas are licensed to practice in Illinois but not Nebraska, meaning they need the assistance of a local attorney to work in the state. It is unclear how much the new local attorneys will be scrutinized at Monday's hearing. Until Thursday, the Matas' previous local attorneys, Dan Stockman and Jeff Luchin, had extremely limited involvement in the case, merely sitting in the court as the Matas defended Garcia. In an affidavit, Stockman said he had not reviewed any discovery materials related to the case, interviewed any witnesses, and has minimal communication with the Matas regarding the defense strategy. Stockman and Luchin said they want to withdraw to distance themselves from any alleged ethical violations by Mata and Mata. Asked Friday whether he had any concerns, Jorgensen declined to comment. Other than to say he had researched the issue, he said he may have more to comment after Monday's hearing. Jorgensen was in the second row during Thursday's hearing over Stockman and Luchin's withdrawal. At the hearing, Allison Mata asked the judge to keep the trial start date as Monday, saying she could secure a local attorney's cooperation in time. Randall declined and delayed the trial indefinitely. Afterwards, Jorgensen walked with the Matas from the courthouse to his office across the street. Though the 3 local attorneys likely will have limited roles, Jorgensen has a murder trial experience. In 2013, he represented Derek Strickland, a man accused of killing 2 people during a cocaine robbery. Strickland was convicted and is serving life sentences. He also represented a Lincoln man, Cassius Haynes, and secured a plea bargain that reduced his charge from second-degree murder to manslaughter. Jorgensen said he has handled several defendants, post-conviction motions as well. He was disciplined for ethical violations, though.
Oh,
In
boy.
2012,
Good
and it
news
just-
all
it-
around.
yeah. a decision by the Supreme Court reprimanded Jorgensen and put him on a professional probation for a year, ordering him to have a mentor monitor his work. The Supreme Court charged him with a number of ethical violations for mishandling personal injury cases in 2009 and 10. Jorgensen did not challenge the formal charges against him, and the worst violations, he accepted a $1,500 retainer on a case in which the statute of limitations had expired.
Wow.
He said Friday, "What's that got to do with
What's it
anything?
got to do
That
with
was
it?
early in my career. I'm licensed and in good standing." Reed primarily practices in civil litigation, although Jorgensen said he will be helping in some of Jorgensen's criminal defense work as well. James Owen was admitted to the Nebraska bar in September.
And the city calls for a study on yard waste disposal. Omaha city officials want a study to suggest the best way to handle yard waste, environmentally and financially. The city now composts yard waste and sells it as Omaha. But the city loses money on it, said the mayor. It's not environmentally friendly to send out diesel trucks to every house to pick up yard waste. Instead, she likes the idea of collecting yard waste along with people's trash and taking it to the landfill. There, the methane gas produced from the decomposing material is turned into electricity. Stothard raised the idea during a larger discussion of Omaha's waste pickup, but some constituents and city council members have balked at the idea. Councilman Pete Festerman says push the administration to check the environmental impact of this method of yard waste disposal. Stothard agreed, and public work officials are talking to prospective consultants. The study will probably take months to complete, said Perlman. And the works director, Bob Stubbe, said it would cost around $100,000. Stothard said she also asked public work officials to survey Omaha about what they want out of their trash pickup. In the meantime, it's not clear what will happen to yard waste this summer. Last year, the city fined its trash collector, Waste Management, because of delays in picking up yard waste. Waste Management officials said the problem was a shortage of potential workers with a commercial driver's license. The mayor described then a temporary measure that allowed the city to pick up yard waste. That meant 2 trucks, one for trash and one for recycling. To avoid the same problem this summer, Waste Management agreed to measure its intention to attract more drivers. Festerson said he supports the mayor's yard waste study, but for this year, he wants Waste Management to resume taking yard waste to the composting facility. That's too bad. That was kind of a nice thing at Omaha Grill. It was good compost for your yard.
Oh,
It really fed the soil.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this interesting local news, an 11-year-old boy was taken into custody after police say he shot a pellet gun at a priest in a parking lot of the church. Actually, this is where I went to school.
Oh.
Officers detained responded to an assault call at St. James Catholic Church about 9:20 p.m. Wednesday. The Reverend Thomas Weisbecker, the church pastor, reported that he had been walking in the area when a boy ran up to him from behind and shot him 3 times in the head with a pellet gun. When the boy ran away, and then he returned and said, "Give me all your money," and told Weisbecker, who was trying to dial 911, to put his cell phone on the ground.
Oh,
The boy ran away as police arrived, but officers found him at a nearby house.
crazy.
The boy's mother, contacted Friday by phone, said her son had run into the house as she was in the garage, preparing to back out of her driveway. A police cruiser then pulled in, she said, and she escorted officers inside the house, where they found the airsoft gun. The boy's mother said she planned to go to church Friday to talk to the priest. "I really want to apologize for the actions of my son," she said. "I don't know what got into him." The 11-year-old boy was booked into the Douglas County Youth Center on suspicion of attempted robbery and misdemeanor assault. And in other local news, the phrase "Black Lives Matter, white boy" was scratched into the hood of a Ford Taurus parked in a West Omaha neighborhood, police said. Omaha police said the incident is being investigated as a hate crime. Officers were sent to a home southwest of 156th and West Dodge Road at 3:20 p.m. Thursday. Justin Flint, 29, told police someone had broken the windshield of his car, the front passenger side window, and the rearview mirror on the passenger side. Flint, who is white, told police he doesn't have any conflict with anyone and is unsure why anyone would vandalize his car. And an Omaha man told police that he was shot while walking in a southwest Omaha parking lot Thursday afternoon. Police were sent to 13048 Deast Plaza just after 5 p.m. to investigate a shooting. Wisdom McGee, 23, said he was walking in the lot when he heard gunshots and realized he'd been hit. McGee was taken to the medical center for treatment. Police said 2 misdemeanor warrants were pending on him, and he was booked into the Douglas County Jail after being medically cared for. And finally, more than 2,000 family, friends, and public safety officers gathered at a West Des Moines church to honor one of the 2 Des Moines police officers killed in a head-on crash. The Des Moines Register reports that it has been a difficult time for the family of Carlos Pente Morales, who died with Officer Susan Farrell on March 26 in a crash with a wrong-way driver. During the Mass at St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church, Bishop Richard Pates acknowledged the family's great loss in the past 16 months. Morales Puente's brother died in November 2014 in a traffic accident, and their father died months later. Puente Morales had worked as an officer in Ottumwa before moving to Des Moines Police. Farrell's funeral is Wednesday at the Lutheran Church of Hope in West Des Moines. The prisoner the officers were transporting and the other driver were also killed in the crash.
Wow. And encouraging signs in Alzheimer's fight, but a cure is still a dream. The news is both exciting and disappointing from the front lines of the battle against Alzheimer's disease. An expert from the Mayo Clinic said Friday in Omaha that clinical tests are taking place to see if drugs can combat the disease. Scientists and physicians hope that the meds can stabilize Alzheimer's patients, bringing about improvement or delay of memory loss. At the same time, Peterson shunned the word cure. Just as heart disease isn't being cured, the best hope for the next few years is to slow the disease's progress or delay its onset. Among the 200 faculty members, students, and others in the audience was Mike Hughbanks, 59, who learned last year that he has the disease. He suspected it because he was experiencing memory loss and problems with decision-making. He works for an Omaha finance company but retired last September. More discouraging than the diagnosis itself was finding that there was no clear way to a cure. Hughbanks threw himself into speaking to others about Alzheimer's. While he can still drive and do the family grocery shopping, he knows that deterioration is inevitable. In 8 to 10 years, he will have to go to a nursing home. The Alzheimer's Association estimates 5.4 million Americans have the disease. Most are 65 or older. Nearly 1 in 3 people aged 85 has it. Peterson, 69, said PET scans, MRIs, and spinal taps are among the ways that physicians are making early diagnoses. If patients get an early diagnosis, they can prepare better. And it also gets patients into clinical trials. Dr. Daniel Merman, a UNMC professor of neurology, said there are multiple clinic trials taking place now. I'm still optimistic about the drugs, he said, but we've had a lot of failures in the past 15 years. Peterson showed a clip of a 2014 movie of country star Glenn Campbell, who has Alzheimer's. Without his teleprompter, Campbell couldn't perform. Hughbanks said he could relate to that. Although his disease hasn't progressed that far, he is making notes when giving talks about Alzheimer's. Hughbanks, upbeat and sharp in a sports coat and a dress shirt, has no Pollyanna notions about his fight with Alzheimer's. We know what the outcome will be, he said.
And a 23-year-old man who authorities say abducted and stabbed his ex-girlfriend pleaded guilty to 6 felonies in Sarpy County District Court. Dylan Doberlin originally was charged with kidnapping, attempted first-degree murder, burglary, 2 counts of terroristic threats, 2 counts of use of a weapon to commit a felony, stalking and criminal mischief less than $1,500 third-degree assault, and 8 counts of negligent child abuse. On Friday, he pleaded guilty to first-degree assault, attempting kidnapping, terroristic threats, 2 counts of use of a weapon to commit a felony, and criminal mischief. The other charges were dropped. He is to be sentenced June 27th and get up to 210 years in prison.
Oh, shit.
Authorities say that on July 7th, Doberlin abducted his ex-girlfriend, Nicole Kozwerko, from her job at a daycare, then beat and stabbed her. Kozwerko told the World Herald in August that she was working at a home daycare in Sarpy County near 156th Street and Giles Road when the ex-boyfriend burst into the home, abducted her at knife point, and forced her into his car. He stabbed her multiple times, she said. She jumped out of his car near 204th and Q, and he followed, cutting her from the chest and abdomen. She was saved when a good Samaritan stopped to help. Several people distracted Doberman while another man drove her away. More people stepped in after Doberman tried to follow her and rammed his car into the car she was riding in. Kozwerko was taken to the hospital with multiple stab wounds and spent 8 days there. Deputy County Attorney Tom Bradley said the Kozwerko family is glad to be able to start moving forward as she continues to heal from her physical and
I'm
mental
glad
energies.
she's making it. Oh.
Overall, everyone is happy that he faces exposure to enough time to allow the judge to do what's right, Brantley said. Glenn Shapiro, Doberlin's attorney, said his client has some underlying mental health issues that impaired his judgment. Dylan, of course, regrets his actions of that day. Otherwise, he is a nice man from a good family, Shapiro said. She said the hope is to get him through the system so that he can move on with his life after this is over.
Oh, that's sad.
Chuck Kozwerko, Nicole Kozwerko's father, said the plea deal was a good thing because his daughter won't have to relive the events of the day while testifying. Now she knows the end of the case is nearing and get on with her life. As of right now, we're hoping he gets the maximum sentence, he said.
Oh, did you?
I have one more.
Okay.
And we're going to go, it's just an article about a transplant.
Oh, okay.
It says Levi Schultz was a man known for his awesomeness. The high school senior worked at a Walmart near his hometown of Horace, North Dakota. He played video and online games with friends. He loved sports, Mountain Dew, and the color red. When the teen applied for his driver's license, he asked his mother, Lisa Swanson, about the organ donation. She explained that the meaning of becoming an organ donor. She was one, as was Levi's father, Rick Schultz. So were Levi's twin brother, Shelby, and older brother, Colton. Swanson told her son that the decision to become a donor was up to him. He was leaning on the counter and he said, "Mom, who wouldn't want my awesomeness?" She remembered. I rolled my eyes. He was always quick-witted like that and just said, "Mark the box."
Oh, cute.
Roughly a decade before, Omaha Terry Hooper was diagnosed in June 2003 with cardiomyopathy, a disease in which the heart loses its ability to pump blood effectively. He was 51 years old. I couldn't tell it was that bad, he said. I was walking and running and whatever I wanted to do. I never got tired. Hooper, who was not married and has no children, was prescribed medications but had to return to the hospital 2 years later. I couldn't breathe for 3 months, he said. I was suffering every night. I'd get up and I couldn't lie down. In April 2005, doctors at the Nebraska Medical Center discovered that his aortic valve was leaking, something they said probably had gone undetected since birth. Hooper underwent an aortic valve replacement, but his heart still functioned at just 30%. 7 years later, his heart function had declined to 5%. After testing confirmed he was a viable candidate for heart transplant, Hooper was placed on the transplant waiting list in October 2012. On December 7th, 2012, 18-year-old Levi was on his way to school when his truck caught a flat tire. The pickup truck hit him while he was outside his vehicle. He was pretty much gone instantly, said his mother. They took him to the hospital and the doctors did everything they could to keep him alive. There was just nothing there anymore. Levi was kept on life support so his organs could be donated. More than 400 miles away, Hooper was waiting for a new heart. He received Levi's heart a few days later on December 10th. The average of 79 people receive organ transplants each day, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Another 22 people on average die each day due to the shortage of donated organs. Hooper said he recognizes that it was through someone else's loss that he was able to be alive today, and he's humbled for it. I live every minute of every hour. I get up and I thank him. I go to bed, I thank him. Transplant recipients, donor families sometimes start communicating via organ donation coordinator Megan Gregory, the Donate Life Services coordinator at the Nebraska Med Center. And she said about half the recipients and donor families expressed interest in meeting. The group does not track how many eventually do. Hooper reached out to Levi's family in January 2013. I was surprised when Hooper contacted me, Swanson said. He had just gotten out of the hospital and he was writing that letter, which I appreciated. As a donor family, I want to know my son's organs were going to help people. I want to know that what they're doing and how their lives have improved. It wasn't long before she and Hooper were sending letters and emails. Meetings seemed like the next step. On Friday, Hooper met Levi's mom and twin for the first time. It was tearful and a bittersweet meeting at the Nebraska Med Center, with more hugs and handshakes. Hooper underwent an electrocardiogram similar to an ultrasound, and for the first time since 2012, Swanson heard her son's heartbeat.
Isn't that neat?
The cardiac sonographer placed wires in Hooper's chest while she joked with Levi's mom and twin brother. I'm a seasoned veteran at this, he chuckled. In the push of a few buttons, a pulsing image appeared on the electrocardiogram. Tears filled Swanson's eyes as the sound of a steady beats filled the room. Okay, Lisa, are you okay? Hooper said. Yeah, she responded softly, never taking her eyes off the screen. That moment might have been lasted only a few minutes, but the impact was profound. Shelby, who is studying business management at North Dakota State University, said Levi would have liked Hooper as they shared similar traits.
Well, that's neat. Huh?
And we'll go ahead to the deaths and funerals, of the Omaha World Herald for today. I'm sorry. And Barton, Sally Sage Barton, that's pretty, age 88. In lieu of flowers, memorial suggested to the Alzheimer's Association. Memorial service Monday, 11 a.m. at the 72nd Chapel of John A. Gentleman Mortuaries, who was also handling the arrangements. Bell, Gail A. Bell, age 68. Memorials can be directed to the family care of Prairie Meadows, 13208 Meredith Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska, 68162. Private family services will be held. Arrangements by the Brahman Mortuary. Blaschke, Howard W. Harold Blaschke, age 94. Memorials will be directed by the family. A graveside service will be held at a further date in Maryville, Kansas. Arrangements by the Brahman Mortuary. Bradford, Judy Bradford, age 76. A private family remembrance. Arrangements by the Nebraska Cremation. Clanton, Shauna B. Clanton, age 62. Services Saturday, that's today at 11 a.m. at Kuntz Memorial Lutheran Church. Arrangements by Hefe Hoffman, Dvorak Cutler, F Street Chapel. Cole, Marianne Haas Cole, age 93. Memorials to the Holy Name Church. Let's see. Funeral Mass Monday, 12 a.m. noon at Holy Name Church. Arrangements by John A. Gentleman Mortuary, 72nd Street Chapel. Cotton, Diane E. Patstoney Cotton, age 67. Memorials will be directed by the family. Celebration of Life service, 2 p.m. Saturday at West Lawn Hillcrest Memorial Park Funeral Home, who is also handling the arrangements. Excuse me. Ellis, Althea Ellis, age 97. Funeral services following the 11 a.m. interment at Bellevue Cemetery. Arrangements provided by Bellevue Memorial Chapel of Hefe Hoffman, Dvorak Cutler. Engelke, Marion Douglas Engelke, age 86. Memorials to the Alzheimer's Association. Services Monday, 11 a.m. at the mortuary, which is Hefe Hoffman, Dvorak Cutler, F Street Chapel. Fry, Marianne Fry, age 84, from Missouri Valley, Iowa. Funeral services are 10:30 a.m. Monday at St. Paul Lutheran Church. Arrangements by the Hennessy Funeral Home. Hindmarsh, Don Richard Hindmarsh, age 85. In lieu of flowers, the family asked that donations be made to the American Cancer Society, Open Door Mission, and the St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Church. Funeral mass at 6. Funeral mass is scheduled for Monday, April 4th at 10:30 a.m. at St. Vincent de Paul. Arrangements provided by the Roeder Mortuary, 108th Street Chapel. Hunting, Ada Joyce Hunting, aged 83. Memorial service at 11 a.m. at the Avery Presbyterian Church. It doesn't say which day that, so I assume that's today. Arrangements by the West Lawn Hillcrest Memorial Park Funeral Home. Jackson, Eartha M. Jackson, age 69, private services. Keene, Evelyn Keene, age 84, from Dawson, Nebraska. Funeral mass 10:30 a.m. Monday at St. Mary's Catholic Church. Arrangements provided by the Dorr and Clark Funeral Home in Falls City, Nebraska. Lee, Mildred B. Lee, age 95, from Council Bluffs. Memorials are suggested to the Neola Presbyterian Church. Arrangements provided by the Cutler O'Neill Meyer Woodring Funeral Home. Funeral service Monday, 11 a.m. at the Neola Presbyterian Church. Logan, Jeffrey S. Logan, age 61. Arrangements provided by the Crosby Burkett Swanson Golden Colonial Chapel. O'Connor, John Robert Bob O'Connor, age 92. Mass of Christian burial Saturday at 10:30 a.m. at St. Robert Bellarmine Church. Arrangements by Heafy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler. Pantano, Anthony R. Pantano, age 94, MD. Let's see, Mass of Christian burial, 9:30 a.m. Saturday, the Christ the King Catholic Church. Arrangements by Heafy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler. Rosinski, Jerry Rosinski, aged 85. Donations to the Rose Blumkin Home, Temple Israel, or the Charities of Choice. Arrangements provided by the John A. Gentleman Mortuary and Crematory. Services 2:30 p.m. at the Beth El Cemetery on Sunday. Rosso, Ronald A. Rosso, age 62. Memorials to the Open Door Mission, Sienna Francis House, or American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, or the Nebraska chapter. Celebration of his life will be held at Nebraska Machine Products, F Street, on Sunday, April 3rd at 4 p.m. Arrangements by Heafy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler. Schneider, Phyllis M. Schneider, aged 86. Funeral service Monday, 12 noon at the Krasko Larkin Staskowitz Funeral Home, and they're also in charge of the services. Schwenke, Earl F. Schwenke, age 85. Funeral services at 11 a.m. Monday, Trinity Lutheran Church, Fremont. Arrangements provided by the Moser Memorial Chapel in Fremont, Nebraska. Smith, Esther Mae Fritz Smith, age 79. Memorial suggested to the charity of your choice. Services of a review of her life will be Monday, April 4th at the Brahman Mortuary. Arrangements, of course, by the Brahman Mortuary, 72nd Street Chapel. Smith, Mary J. Roush Smith, age 86. Funeral service 12 noon Monday, April 4th at the Bellevue Christian Center. Arrangements provided by the Bellevue Memorial Chapel of Heafy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler. Summer, Beatrice Summer, age 97. Memorials to the Rose Blumkin Jewish Home. Graveside services Sunday, 1 p.m. at Temple Israel Cemetery. Stoddard, Robert Jean Stoddard, age 61, a complete notice later. Arrangements by Heafy Hoffman Dvorak Cutler. Stodala, Emily R. Stodala, age 89. Funeral service Saturday at 10 a.m. at St. Thomas More Church. Arrangements by the Krasko Larkin Staskowitz Funeral Home. Swoboda, Betty F. Swoboda, age 85. Funeral service 10 a.m. Monday at the mortuary to St. Thomas More Catholic Church at 10:30 a.m. Arrangements by Krasko Krasko Larkin Staskowitz Funeral Home. Thompson, Lorene A. Thompson, age 76. Memorial suggested to the Nebraska Organ Retrieval System. Funeral service 1:30 p.m. Monday, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Arrangements by Caller Dulce Memorial Funeral Home. And finally, Walker. Michelle Rennell Walker, age 41. Services Saturday, April 2nd at 1 p.m. at North Omaha Church of Christ. Arrangements by Chapel of Memories.
And from the Lincoln Star, Donaldson, Betty Marie Donaldson, aged 89. Memorials may be sent to Juvenile Diabetes Research. Mass of Christian Burial, 10:30 a.m., Blessed Sacrament Catholic Church. Foster, June Foster, 95, of Lincoln. Memorial service, 11 a.m., April 2nd, at Wary Mortuary in Pawnee City. Hogue, George Ralph Hogue of Lincoln, passed away March 30th. Hulbert, Kenneth Lee Hulbert of Lincoln, 86. Johnson, Shirley A. Johnson of Fairbury, aged 86. Lonsdale, Mildred Lonsdale, 92, of Lincoln, private services, Buthers, Mason, and Law Funeral Home. Mitchell, Martin Mitchell of Lincoln, service 12 p.m. Tuesday, April 5th, Bremen Mortuary, age 57. Maureen, John Elliott Maureen, 67, U.S. Army graduation, private family service at Calvary Cemetery, Alzheimer's Association beneficiary. LaRich, Leona LaRich of Ostermeyer, is age 99. Service is 1 p.m. Monday, April 4th at Wyuka Chapel. Roki, Dorothy M. Roki, 90, widow of Harvey. Funeral 10:30 a.m. Monday, April 4th at St. Lutheran Church in rural Lincoln, Griffith Ovendeck Chapel. Romar, a veteran, age 90, Mark Archie Romar. Funeral service 10:30 a.m. Tuesday, April 5th, Presbyterian Church. Will be buried with honors, Metz Mortuary. Memorials to Shriners Hospital for Children. Ryan, Thera May Ryan, age 99, of Plattsmouth. Stansberry, Mabel E. Stansberry, 98, of Lincoln. Service Monday, 11 a.m. April 4th at St. Mark's UMC in Lincoln. Roper and Sons Mortuary. Vogelsang, Larry Eugene Vogelsang, age 69, served in the U.S. Air Force. Celebration of Life, 2 p.m. Sunday, April 3rd. Veterans of Foreign War Post in Lake Tacoma. Arrangements, John Moore Funeral Home. Watts, 56, David Watts of Lincoln. U.S. Army Memorial Service, 9 a.m. Wednesday, April 6th at Lincoln Barron Church. Flowers and contributions to the church. And last, Wessel, Lee Walter Wessel, 78. Service 1:30 p.m. Friday, April 1st at Living Faith Free Methodist Church in Lincoln, Hammond's Family Funeral Home. Very good.
Listeners' memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and will go a long way in keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska 68152. We thank you for being a Radio Talking Book Network listener and supporter, and now we'll go to our break and be back with opinion, living, business, and sports.
So when do you get the results of your test?
Sometime this week,
Okay.
when she gets back in, she's off certain days. She's not in her office. She works at the med center, but
They'll call you?
yeah, they'll call me. So,
Okay.
and then, I think more concerning is if it's not a brain tumor, which would be great news. I can't get the prism to see is here and here and here. My eyes are crossed, like they're turning in.
Mhm.
So the options are with that. I've read if that's first of all they want to see why that is, but let's say it's just muscles. So there's muscle straightening surgery.
Oh yeah, there is.
Which I just don't.
You never see anybody cross-eyed anymore, ever.
No, but I've had grave surgery.
I know.
And I think it's want to know the truth. I mean, Oh, I have Graves' disease, and you know how they used to radiate the thyroids? They did that instead of removing part of the thyroids like they used to when you had Graves. Do you remember when people used to have
Oh, yeah.
like that
Oh,
goiter,
oh,
you know,
yes.
thing
No, I
removed?
sure do.
And
You don't have that, though. No.
well, I had Graves, and what they did is they did radioactive iodine, where you drank the iodine, and
It goes
supposedly
into-
the thyroid absorbs all of it and kills the thyroid. So that was many years ago. They think that's what causes the Graves' disease.
Yeah, the
mostly.
thyroid does so much to your
Well,
body.
you need it, you know.
Yeah.
And so now they think that that's what caused it. Because immediately after that, then I started having problems with my eyes, and that's what the surgeon said then. And he's so wonderful, but he doesn't do this kind of surgery, and I just don't. You know, I don't know if I want to go through those surgeries again. I read online. That's one thing. There's another thing where they can inject Botox, and she didn't mention that. And
In your eyes? Like around your
yeah,
eyes?
and the muscles. So where it'll fix the muscles for a certain while. And he used to do things like that with eyelid disease.
Yeah, people do it with all the facial stuff for cosmetic services. It's not that bad.
I know, but who wants to put botulism, I mean, the plague in your body, you know?
Well, if it's
So that's-
somehow help without surgery, boy, it'll be worth it.
Maybe. And then the other one is what you do to your hand.
Oh, my
Did you burn
curling
it?
iron, yeah.
Ouch. Your hair looks so cute.
Thank you.
So then the third option is, prisms, but they can't, waiting for this to slip, get settled.
Is it getting worse?
My eye strain is getting worse. You can go blind. I didn't know this because what happens is you're favoring one eye, and you can drive with one eye in Nebraska. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah. I know of a doctor who has one eye and drives all over.
My girlfriend Janet, she has one eye.
Yeah, there's a lot
So
of people
it's
have one
just
eye.
it's a nuisance, Jane, is
I
what
know
it is.
honey.
And I don't
now,
have
does
a
it bother
thousand-
you to drive?
Yeah, I can drive with these, but I don't drive on the interstate because I have my
No.
peripheral.
You're
But-
just like an old like me. I can't drive very far, and I don't never drive on the interstate with my.
No, until I can't go to this wedding and this is a mess.
I think that's wonderful.
What?
I think that was causing you too much stress.
Yeah,
It was
I don't
horrible.
know what I'm going to do with Heaven. She keeps peeing on the floor. And this morning she pooped and I had to let her out.
I'd take her back, honey. You
No.
can't put up with that.
You know what I'm going to do? She does really great. She wants to go out. She does it when she's out. A lot of it is just staying on top of it.
She's never been trained.
She's lived in a cage her entire. She climbs the fence and holds onto the fence and poops like you'd be in a cage. Doesn't that break your heart? So you know what I'm going to do? When my Shih Tzu and when Valerie were sick when they were dying, I made panties. I went to the store. You know those ones that you put on little girls?
Oh, sure.
I'm just underdresses to be
Even
cute.
dogs wear them for their periods too sometimes.
Right. Well, these are just little leggy panties, and then I put a hole in it for their tail,
Mhm.
and I put pets and stuff.
It's a lot of work.
Oh, it's easy. I've done
Okay,
it. So
okay, if you don't mind it.
no, but I wonder if
What
she'll
about
take to
caging
it.
her during the day? I mean, they're letting her out just a little bit, but putting her in there most of the time.
She hates it. She hates the cage.
know,
We
but-
leave her in the
But
cage
she
when we
wouldn't
leave.
pee in the cage.
No, she doesn't. But we leave her out. See, we leave her in the cage when we go.
Oh, okay, so
When we
you do
when we
cage her
go
when you go.
at
Okay.
night. Because you
Okay.
can't.
Okay.
Jack growls at her sometimes, and you don't want Jack to growl at her,
No.
or bite her while we're gone, But she was letting me love her up this morning, Jean,
Oh.
and I was rubbing in her ears. She cried like something hurt her ear. I'm
Maybe
going to take her to the
infection
vet.
in them or something.
I'm going to have to take her to the vet.
Right.
I don't know which
Keep
vet
doing
yet.
what you can, what you
Oh.
can tolerate.
Yeah.
What you can tolerate.
Well, part of it too, I was originally blaming G, because she was not on top of letting her out, but now it's not, because I just let her out this morning, and she pooped on the floor, and she cried, she barked to go out though. She barked, but G didn't get up, and I was in the shower, so it wasn't her fault.
Kind of heartbreaking. They have so many problems when they're raised.
It's terrible. Thank you. And from the Public Pulse, warm and painful memories. Reading an overdue welcome home in the March 30th World Herald brought back sad and happy memories for me. Happy because I was meeting my then husband, Otho Cox, since deceased, coming home on leave from Vietnam. Very sad because a nice restaurant in the Chicago airport wouldn't allow us in because he was in uniform. It was such a disappointment and letdown to both of us, and it was definitely difficult to forgive. The present day welcome homes for our veterans is long overdue. Signed, Tessa Cox Turner of Bellevue.
And time for Chambers to call it a day.
Oh,
If Omaha State Senator Ernie Chambers were to look in the mirror, he would see a disagreeable old man, a man who expresses himself by saying things like he'd like to mow people down with a semi-automatic weapon. Ooh. Anti-bias bill is killed amid vows to resume fight. March 24th. I think Chambers is a danger to himself and the people around him. Maybe it's time for him to step aside and give his job to someone who can get things done by getting along with other people. Chambers' time has come and gone. Will Mack of Omaha. I don't buy that spirit.
and from Omaha, I don't understand why people are standing on the steps of Nebraska's Capitol asking for special treatment at work. 200 rally at Capitol in support of bill to ban job bias based on sexual orientation from the March 23rd World Herald. In my working days, the applications asked if you were single or married, male or female, just to go to work to do your job and go home. Keep your private life to yourself. You don't need special treatment. Signed, Marcy Miller.
Yeah, good one. March 27th, Public Pulse writer Steve Hudson, Opportunity for the Riverfront, has some interesting ideas. Omaha's riverfront should be given serious consideration. They make a lot of sense, more than others that I have read about. I too have enjoyed Kansas City's river market for many years. It succeeds despite being on the opposite side of the interstate from the main downtown business district. Even though it's not all that close to the river, I think an Omaha version could be as viable, if not more so. A popular restaurant serving breakfast and lunch, a fun retro store similar to Fairmont's Antique and Mercantile, perhaps even a modern, glassy Lewis and Clark Museum, might be good additions to the riverfront. Amen. Richard Tice of Omaha. Good idea.
And from Omaha, in an effort to rename winter break Christmas break, failed at the Millard School Board meeting. Christmas spirit fails on 3-1 vote, March 23rd World Herald. I agree with the school board member Paul Meyer. I'm tired of people pushing God out of our society too. I think for once parents should be allowed to vote on some issues. Signed, Kelly Lowry Dolloff of Omaha.
And words can't describe the Senate's actions. Soft words like honest, just, and fair used to be powerful statements when describing another person. Even more powerful were the words dishonest, unjust, and unfair. Today, those words mean little to many and less to the political vigilantes. President Obama was elected to work for us for 4 years, not 3. He did what his job description demanded and nominated a replacement for the Supreme Court. The Senate, under the tutelage, not leadership, of Senators Mitch McConnell and Chuck Grassley, have essentially told the president he doesn't work there anymore. They don't have to acknowledge the nomination. In doing so, these senators demonstrate no sense of honesty, justice, or fair play. What stronger words are there for this kind of behavior? Larry Leeds of Omaha.
And from Omaha, I would recommend to Senators Chuck Grassley and Mitch McConnell that the Senate move quickly and confirm Supreme Court nominee Merrick Garland. Judge Garland seems to be a middle-of-the-road nominee who is easily confirmed both by the Democrats and Republicans when he was nominated to the appeals court. As we watch the Republican Party dissolve before our eyes, one can only guess what kind of liberal judge President Hillary Clinton would nominate.
And where's Pat when we need him? The current presidential candidates are running their campaigns using obvious lies, double talk, and tongue-in-cheek attacks on the others. My favorite candidate of the past based his entire campaign on these same things. He would get my vote if he were running today. At least we knew what he was really about. His name was Pat Paulson. He was a true American patriot. His campaign slogan, just a common, ordinary, simple savior of America's destiny, Jim Trimmer of Omaha.
Thank you. And from the living section today, there's a clock on the front of it with a hose as the outline of the clock and spades as the time, and then I guess trimmers in the middle as the arms. And it says, Mother Nature's clock is ticking. The ground has thawed, the sun is out, birds are flocking back to the Midwest. The annual gardening rush is here, and in some cases a little early. See related stories. For those who have started preparing or just started preparing, there's still plenty to do. With prime planting about a month away, that means tools need to be cleaned, soil needs to be prepped, plants need to be pruned, and a lot more. Remembering all of that can feel overwhelming. So here's a run through of important gardening tasks to plan for and when you should start to check them off your list. Number one, it might be too late for these tasks. Test your soil if you wanted it, if you were desiring it. Start seeds immediately. Prune what you still can, including dead or damaged branches. Rake winter debris from lawn. Tackle as soon as possible. Buy potted windowsill herbs and start growing. Clean, fix, or replace damaged tools. Service your lawnmower and sharpen the blade. Mix your compost pile one last time. Add compost and other materials to the soil. Mow as needed. Cut ornamental grasses down to a few inches off the ground. I didn't know you were supposed to do that. Harden off 2 transplants 2 weeks before you begin to plant. Plant trees and shrubs and diagram your garden. Early April, plant cool weather plants, pansies, ornamental kale, some veggies, and cover if the frost is in the forecast. Aerate lawn and reseed bare patches. Address common gardening pests before they attack. In late April, aerate your lawn, tidy up flower beds, and apply mulch. De-winterize your irrigation system and repair any breaks. Start planting, check overnight lows to ensure the risk of overnight freeze is ended. Apply fertilizer and pre-emergent to your lawn and start watering it. Remove the plants you started indoors to outside. Prune spring flowering bulbs as flowers begin to fade. Thin out crowded seedlings as needed. March 29th is Arbor Day. Plant a tree.
Oh, that's right.
And then May 8th, the rule of thumb, safe time to plant is Mother's Day, but anytime after the last freeze is safe.
No.
Keep your plants well watered and get into the habit. Apply fertilizer, then mark your calendar to reapply in 4 to 6 weeks. Place bird feeders outside. I don't know, the birds are out in my yards already.
Oh.
Tackle weeds as they appear. Plant annual flowers, pinch mums, asters, and fall flowering sedum. Mulch new plants to retain moisture and fend off weeds. And finally, mid to late May, transplant tomatoes, beans, and other warm weather plants when soil tops 50 degrees. Move houseplants outside. If you have a compost pile, mix it up and make sure it stays moist. Use stakes or other supports for plants that need them. Reseed bare spots in your line on water. Start a second round of cool season vegetables. Apply pre-emergent herbicide to vegetable gardens once all the plants have sprouted. It's time to think of that, Jean. I can't believe it.
The YMCA celebrates 150 years.
No.
The Y will open its doors to the public today for free use of its gyms, pools, and other facilities. For 150 years, the YMCA has been part of the tapestry that is Omaha. Today it will throw open its doors to celebrate. The public will be able to use all gyms, pools, handball courts, and other facilities for free. Just bring a photo ID and be prepared to sign a waiver. The day-long event includes discounts on memberships and summer day camp. In Omaha, the Y's history is as storied as the city itself. It will be featured as part of a special section in the World Herald this fall. In 1866, a little more than 20 years after the first Y was organized in London, George Frost launched the Y in Omaha. Frost was a railroad executive and a politician who believed that a Christian clubhouse was important to city building and schools, churches, and hotels. An international organization, the YMCA traces its roots to the turbulent social changes brought by urbanization and industrialization in the 1800s. As rural men streamed into urban centers, there was a need for a social outlet other than bars and brothels, and from that need came the YMCA. It has grown steadily in Omaha. In 1890, Nebraska's first college football game was played between the University of Nebraska and the Omaha YMCA. The Y lost. In the 1900s, as immigrants poured into the city, the Y offered English classes to Japanese, Greeks, and Italians. During the war, both wars, the Y provided soldiers a place to gather. In more recent years, the Y has focused on healthy living, youth development, and social responsibility. The YMCA of Greater Omaha starts another chapter in Omaha on Monday. Chris Toynton will be its new chief executive. Toynton, formerly of Midland, Michigan, has said that with others in the Omaha area, the key to the Y's future success will be working together with the community. That's neat. I didn't know. It's quite an old organization.
I had no idea. That's
They
interesting.
just built a new one in Council Bluffs.
Did they really?
Mhm.
And is that is the Croc Center a Y or no? It's not.
No, it's a
that's the
private
Salvation
organization.
Army.
Salvation
That's right.
Army.
Yeah,
That's a neat place. We've been there.
I like that. Neat that Council Bluffs got one. Well, from Dear Heloise, my sister moved to a small, unfurnished apartment that had been painted and cleaned. It still has the stale odor of cigarettes from previous renters and from apartments beside and above her apartment. Is there something you suggest as a deodorizer to help eliminate the odor? She's using candles and scented sprays, but I notice the odor when I visit. Signed Sensitive Noses in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Dear Sensitive Nose, most apartments are cleaned and usually painted before new renters move in. The carpet should be cleaned too. It should be freshly painted and the air conditioning heating filters should be changed. However, depending on the system, the smoke smell may be coming from a shared air conditioner vent. Meanwhile, if you and your sister can smell it from the vent, then that's the cause. She might turn on the exhaust or vent fan in the kitchen and bathroom to pull the smoky air out of the apartment. The last resort is to mask the smell with sprays, which is what she's doing. However, if the neighbors are smokers, the problem will continue. Sorry to say there's no magic Heloise answer here. Oh, tell her to open her windows and get fresh air into the apartment. Doing that and using an exhaust fan might at least keep the smoky air from getting in the department. Good luck. I'm surprised she didn't talk about vinegar because I heard
Oh,
vinegar
that's great. Yeah.
takes the smell away.
That's right.
Dear Heloise, I put raw potatoes in the microwave to cook. When I take them out and let them cool enough to handle, I use a paring knife to pull the skins off. They come off really easy and cause me no pain. They can be boiled in the stove until tender and then cooled, and the skins will pull off. Then they can be mashed, sliced, or whatever. Signed Opal in Garden Grove, California. Dear Heloise, when moving, wash and take at least one garbage can. You will need it when unpacking, and you often won't be issued one in the new city's garbage cans for a few days after the move. Also, after 50 years, I have been unwrapping my bars of soap and let them air dry before use. They last twice as long, especially with little kids in the bathtub. Signed, a reader in Maui, Hawaii. Aloha, much malo, malaho, which means many, many, much thanks, Heloise writes. I've also heard that if you put the drawers, the bars of soap in your drawers, they also help make your clothes smell good, and then they last longer as well. And from the pulpit today, Reverend Nancy Tomlinson from St. Paul United Methodist Church. I'm intrigued by how much our lives parallel the events of the last week of Jesus' earthly life and the hope he gifts us with the resurrection. Last week, our lives were a strange juxtaposition of joy and tragedy, loss and gain, life and death. We remember that the first Holy Week was a time of great joy and celebration, and that moved into confrontation, betrayal, intense agony, torture, and death. As we look at our personal lives and the world in which we live, we can see all of the events happening over and over. We desperately need the resurrection hope because of the way the lives of the disciples parallel our lives, because of the way that Holy Week is a microcosm of our joys and tragedies, hopes and fears. We can all recognize events of betrayal and torture, innocent lives taken and families bereft and seeking solace. We can see in our personal lives the joys of celebration, the pains of betrayal, and the tragedies of loss. We desperately need resurrection hope. My hope and prayer for all of us this year is that deep in our souls we experience the gift of resurrection hope. that we understand that through this world, though this world is finite, there is something infinite and eternal that awaits us in God's glorious presence. May we experience resurrection life and repentance and forgiveness that can come in the midst of sorrow and betrayal. We know that Jesus' love and forgiveness is life-changing and challenging the lives of the first disciples the world has changed. Let us live into resurrection and hope. Let us live working to change our hurting world, one life at a time, beginning with ourselves. Like the early followers of Jesus, let us become people who both experience and share resurrection hope. And from Reverend Gary Eller, Westminster Presbyterian Church, the good news. Keeping Easter. How long does Easter last? Have you found almost all of the dyed eggs that you hid in the house for the kids and the grandkids? Nearly every strand of plastic green grass out of your carpet? Did you nibble the ears off a couple of milk chocolate bunnies or down a few brightly colored foil wrap treats? If so, then Easter may be over for you. Monday came and Tuesday followed, along with the rest of the week after Easter. Taxes loom over you. Spring training will give way to regular season baseball today. Pools will open soon. There will be plenty of grass to cut and way too many weeds to pull. Time to check the lawn sprinkler system for Omaha winter damage. Easter already seems so long ago. Hardly anybody mentioned it all week, and it was just 6 days ago. Most of the Easter lilies were claimed and taken out of the churches on Easter Sunday. Some went to the homebound and ill church members who couldn't make Easter services. And a few were taken to offices and homes where they will be reminders of Easter's recent passing for a couple of weeks or so, at least until the blooms start to fall out of them. Then they too, some of the last reminders of Easter's, will be gone for another year. Of course, Easter never has been relied upon props for its meaning. All of the stuff, the eggs, the gifts, the cards, the chocolate, treats, special gatherings, lilies, and more, comes and goes with only slightly nostalgic loss. Keeping Easter has never been about these things. Thank goodness. No, better yet, thank the risen Christ. And finally, from the Reverend Al Tricano of the United Methodist Church, recently I have discovered the meaning of health, thanks to all the bugs that are gathering around. Both my wife and I have had 2 rounds of this, as someone has been good enough to share what they already had. I don't resent this, but catching something that stays with us over and over again is not my idea how to spend Easter. We found that we could not attend our church for worship since the illness lowered us to our chairs. Now we do not miss church often. You can see the need to be faithful. It doesn't matter where or whatever we are, if we're there, we always pay our tithe to our local church. We know our church cannot continue to function without money. There are many who feel the need to pay only when they sit in their pew. Other times there is that lull when it comes to sharing what belongs to God. We share with him the 10%, which is his due. I know there would be a lot less church dinners if people would just do what God has called them to share. Some love to argue this point when I visit with them, but the Bible is clear what we are to share with him. It says we are to take it off the top and not the bottom. It belongs to him anyway, and all he asks is for our share, not just the leftovers. I do know this, that we are called to be of service to the Lord of our life. Some may not have discovered him yet, but when they do, they will be blessed beyond measure. After all, God deserves the best, and if we can pay him his due, we would not have to be begged or prodded or cajoled to have enough to keep things going. Think on this the next time your church is short of money. Let's guess who's responsible for that shortfall. And in some church life and community things going on, there's a community health fair. The health ministries team at St. Paul United Methodist Church at 5410 Corby Street will sponsor a community health fair from 11:15 to 1:15 p.m. Sunday in the fellowship hall. The theme of the health fair is Empower Your Life. It will feature 9 centers of learning and fun on topics of mental health, physical health, spiritual health designed to inspire participants toward wellness. A light lunch will be available with an offering to offset expenses. For more information, you can go to St. Paul at stpaulomaha.org. And a nun with local ties will be attending a papal mass on Sunday at the Vatican. Sister Mary Care Dobrovny will attend the Divine Mercy Sunday Mass with St. Pope Francis and is celebrating. It's a particular special Mass because this is Jubilee Year of Mercy in the Church. She is a member of the Omaha-based Midwest community, which is part of the Institute of Sisters of Mercy in the American. Dobrovny is born in Hastings, Nebraska, and graduated from Creighton. She worked at Mercy Housing in Omaha and taught at the College of St. Mary in Omaha before taking a position in 2009 with the Mercy International Center in Dublin. And the Center for Faith Studies will host a screening of Out of Frame, Unseen Poverty in the Heartland at 6:30 p.m. Friday at the chapel at Countryside Community Church, 8787 Pacific Street. The documentary is a look at the struggles of people in the community living at or near poverty level. Mike Kornichek, Executive Director of Together, Inc., and Jason Fisk, the documentary's director, will be available for questions and extended discussion about the ways Omahans find themselves living and coping with poverty. RSVPs are appreciated but not required. And St. James Catholic Church will hold a holy hour of adoration known as the First Act at 7 p.m. Friday. The first act includes Eucharistic adoration, contemporary Christian music, and a short witness testimonial from parishioner. The first act usually lasts about 60 to 90 minutes and is followed by refreshments and fellowship. For more information, you can call St. James. And there's a health fair and blood drive. Living Faith United Methodist Church at 5310 South 182nd Avenue will host a free health fair and blood drive from 9 to 10 p.m. April 9th. And for more information, you can call the church.
Okay. And from Dear Amy. Dear Amy, recovering. Say, Dear Amy, I need your opinion on a holiday issue. My 42-year-old son who lives out of state insists that on holidays I should call him because I'm the parent. I say that he should call me first out of respect. What do you think? From Karen. Dear Karen, I think you two need to work on your relationship. This is a petty standoff and reflects the views of two people who are keeping score when they should be communicating. Generally, I believe that once offspring get to be in their 40s, there is no longer a need to baby them by lavishing primary attention upon them. You should not make your own choices based on proving something or keeping score. If you act like a mature adult and call your son without regard to the balance of power, it might inspire him to be more grown up. Dear Amy, recovering had to return to work and deal with curious people about a scar on her face after she had received skin cancer surgery. I recently went through this, and like recovering, I am a very private person who has to work with many people. I learned that the vast majority of people just wanted to know that I was okay. I told key people the truth so that they could spread accurate information. With others, if I had time, I would share the truth and offer advice on regular screenings. With people that I barely knew or when I didn't care to share the truth, I just said, I'm fine now, so don't worry. How was your weekend? Kudos to you, Amy, for plugging regular cancer screenings. Dear survivor, your take on why people inquire about visible injuries, bandages, or scars is wise and understanding. Of course, people are curious, and sometimes people are flat out nosy, but most people want to be responsive and compassionate. This is a case of damned if you do and damned if you don't. Many people would feel offended if they had a visible scar and others didn't ask what was happening to them.
And from Today in History, living is a form of not being sure, not knowing what, next, or how. The moment you know how, you begin to die a little. Signed Agnes DeMille, or that was from Agnes DeMille, an American dancer and choreographer who lived from 1905 to 1993. April 2nd, 1917, President Woodrow Wilson asked Congress to declare war against Germany, saying the world must be made safe for democracy. In 1792, on this day, Congress passed the Coinage Act, which authorized establishment of the U.S. Mint. In 1800, on this day, Ludwig van Beethoven premiered his Symphony No. 1 in C major in Vienna. In 1865, Confederate President Jefferson Davis and most of his cabinet fled the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, because of the advancing Union forces. In 1932, on this day, aviator Charles Lindbergh and John F. Condon went to a cemetery in the Bronx, New York, where Condon turned over $50,000 to a man in exchange for Lindbergh's kidnapped son. 1942, Glenn Miller and his orchestra recorded American Patrol at the RCA Victor Studios in Hollywood. In 1968, on this day, the space film 2001: A Space Odyssey, produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick, had its world premiere in Washington, D.C. Let's see. In 1982, several thousand troops from Argentina seized the disputed Falkland Islands in the South Atlantic from Britain.
Oh, I remember that one.
In 1995, after work stoppage lasting nearly 8 months, baseball owners accepted the players' union offer to play without a contract. And in 2005, on this day, Pope John Paul II died in his Vatican apartment at age 84. And today's birthdays. Let's see. Singer Leon Russell is 74. Jazz musician Larry Coryell is 73. Actress Linda Hunt is 71. Singer Emmylou Harris is 69. Actress Pamela Reed is 67. Singer Karen Woodward of the Bananarama is 55. And I think that's it for today's birthdays.
Okay. And a spray of water might stop your cat's attacks. We have a male rescue cat that we got when he was 12 weeks old. He's now 2, and he seems more attached to me than anyone. He follows me around, often sitting near or on me. He can be sweet one minute as I scratch his head and neck. He'll be purring away. Then suddenly he turns on me and starts biting my feet. If I'm lying down, he will come over and start biting my feet for no reason. Another thing he does is to attack me or my son while we're walking around. He bites and scratches our ankles and lower legs. He doesn't do this to my husband or my other son. I thought maybe he was being playful, but he seems to be very angry. Answer: some people would say that your cat may have been isolated from other cats, but you got your cat at a very early age, at 12 weeks. He does not lash out like this to all the other members of the family. To me, it seems like some cats just come up with these weird games to amuse themselves. Here are some suggestions. First, do not allow him to become overly stimulated when you are petting him. It seems that some cats go into kind of a red zone when you pet them with a lot of pressure at the end of the spine. When he sits next to you on the couch, pet him a couple times, then just stay quiet. If he pushes the issue and rubs against you, get up off the couch and walk away. For his ambush attacks, you have to try a different approach. Buy a bunch of cheap plastic misting bottles, fill them up with water, leave them all over the house so that one is always at your arm's length. When he is rushing towards you or your son, grab a bottle and spray the water at him as calmly as possible. You do not want him to think you're doing it as punishment. Cats do not react well to punishment. You just want him to think that when he decides to scratch you, this water rains down on him seemingly from nowhere. That makes the situation less entertaining for him. He realizes that scratching your legs is no longer any fun. Yeah, spray bottles help a lot with a lot of things.
Do they?
Birds too, yeah.
I had no idea. Well, I think I'm going on to the money section for me, but you can stay with your. I am going to start with some shorts. Business briefs. U.S. construction spending fell 0.5% in February, the largest amount in 3 months, the Commerce Department reported Friday. Weakness in the non-residential construction and government offset the strongest month for home protection in more than 8 years. Home construction rose a solid 0.9%, which pushed that factor to the highest point since October 2007. And Anbeg says it's dropping its $15 billion offer to acquire Starwood Hotels, citing various market considerations and ending the bidding war for the parent of St. Regis and Sheraton Hotels. The China-based insurance company was leading a consortium of potential investors. Starwood, based in Stamford, Connecticut, said its board continues to support its existing $14 billion deal with Marriott. Starwood shareholders would own about 34% of the combined company, which, with 30 brands, would be the world's largest hotel chain. And U.S. manufacturers expanded in March, ending a 5-month streak of declining factory activity. The Institute for Supply Management said Friday that the manufacturing index rose 51.8 last month from 49.5 in February. Any leading above 50 signals growth. The increase suggests that the U.S. factories are adapting to the turmoil abroad. There are a stronger dollar and weakening economies in China, Japan, and elsewhere have hurt sales. And finally, Volkswagen is recalling about 91,000 Passat cars with diesel engines because the wiring under the body can corrode, overheat, and potentially start fires. The recall covers midsize Passats from 2012 through 14 model years. VW says wire seals in electrical connectors weren't properly assembled and could water touch electrical terminals. This can cause a short and in rare cases can cause fire beneath the cars.
Okay. And Ron Rosso, 62. He stood firm after an Omaha factory burned. In June of 2011, Nebraska Machine Products lost everything when its factory, which had occupied the same Omaha location on 45th Street for nearly half a century, burned to the ground. The company, which manufactured everything from small computer parts to agricultural machinery parts, needed someone to bring people together and pick up the pieces. That person was co-owner Ron Rosso, who died Monday of heart failure at 62.
That's sad.
After the fire, he immediately made it clear the company had a future and that employees would be taken care of. The workers were paid during the time that the business was closed. He had felt responsibility to keep them employed. Rosso's wife, Linda, said that was a part of his heart. He couldn't just say, "Sorry, guys, I'm closing down. Good luck to you." In place of their usual work, employees volunteered at a variety of jobs, such as removing beds from the University of Nebraska at Omaha's dorms and taking shifts at soup kitchens. The company has always been a family business, was established in 1966. That's why it was a point of pride not to just find a new place, but the right place. There was pressure from customers to start refilling orders, but it didn't dissuade Rosso from his mission statement. He said, "We're not going to do it quickly, we're going to do it right." Linda Rosso said her husband took about 3 months before settling on a plant at 9101 F Street. It had room for the company to expand. Rosso was born in Omaha, went to Ryan High School, and spent 2 years at the University of Nebraska before joining the family business. At Nebraska Machine Products, he was a co-owner with his brothers from '86 until buying out their shares in 2011. He married Linda in 1987 and each had 2 children from a previous marriage. "We knew we were outnumbered." Rosso had a crusty exterior, his wife said, but underneath he was the most generous, kind-hearted person there was. "I would always tell him, 'You're such an old man, but a good old man.'" Other survivors include 6 children and 8 grandchildren. A celebration of life will be held at the factory at 4 p.m. Sunday. Wow.
I think
That
that's
is so
really,
neat
that
that
he
he
took
ca-
care of his
That he
employees.
kept care, I know.
What a nice person. You
Yeah.
don't hear that much anymore.
No, you sure don't.
And from New York, when Toyota aired a Super Bowl television ad featuring a surprisingly quick Prius gas-electric hybrid eluding police, it marked a turning point for the auto industry. For years, automakers pushed fuel efficiency to sell hybrid and electric vehicles. Now, in an area of cheap gasoline, the message is these cars are faster and quieter than your gas-powered counterparts. And yes, you'll save on fuel. They've graduated out of the class of something that's a bit of an oddity to drive, said Mike O'Brien, Vice President of Product Planning for Hyundai. It's all about making these cars better. Until now, hybrids and electrics have largely appealed to environmentally conscious crowds. The vehicles cost thousands of dollars extra, and although drivers eventually recoup their money in fuel savings, the vehicles lack the power and handling of gas-powered vehicles.
I know, it looks nice, doesn't it?
Electrics also suffered from driver concern that the battery could run out of juice on a trip. Now the tide is slowly turning. Thursday, Tesla unveiled its new $35,000 electric vehicle, and General Motors will price its new car around $30,000, with a $7,000 federal tax credit available. Battery range has improved significantly. Experts expect gasoline prices to eventually climb higher, and the advent of autonomous vehicles favors motors powered by electric over gas. The recent New York International Auto Show, Hyundai and Toyota showed off new electric and hybrid vehicles with presenters from both companies touting them as fun to drive. Hyundai unveiled a battery gas-electric hybrid and plug-in versions of a new car called the Ioniq, while Toyota showed the plug-in Prius Prime, which can go 22 miles on electricity before the electric power system kicks in. The electric range is double the old version. The Prius hybrid, powered by gas and electric motors, started the alternative fuel movement in 2000 in the U.S. Toyota deliberately made it look different from other cars, knowing that buyers wanted to make a statement about their being environmentally friendly. Other companies set their green cars as well. Even though sales grew and manufacturers added models, they never really caught on, particularly because of the improved fuel economy of gas-powered vehicles. At their peak in 2013, with gas averaging $3.50 per gallon, Americans bought only 341,000 hybrids and electrics, about 22% of U.S. total car sales. Companies spent millions developing the cars, taking losses to meet government fuel economy standards that gradually increased and required the new car fleet to average 54.5 miles per hour by 2025. Good. The gas prices fell below $2 per gallon. Sales of hybrids and electrics dropped further. Last year, automakers had 16 hybrid and electric models on sale, but sales sank just over to 274,000.
It's the car of the future, I'm sure.
All of this makes for a bad environment to roll out more hybrids and electrics, it says. Selling them on style, acceleration and reliability. Electric cars have few moving parts. They require far less services, says Renault Nissan Charles Coulson. No oil changes, and they're extremely reliable. I didn't even think about the oil. As a power source, electricity outpaces gasoline in just about every area. And advancements have made batteries smaller, increased their storage capacity, and brought down prices. Electric motors can take off faster than gas engines, and hybrids can power wheels with both electric and gas motors for better acceleration. Electrics are far more quieter. That's true. I don't know if you've ever ridden in a Prius.
I have.
You don't even sound. It doesn't even sound like you're turning on something.
I know.
I love those.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
There's a picture of one down. It looks like something from Walt Disney show.
Doesn't it? It looks like you would ride that in the park.
The doors lift up on either side. There used to be a little bug several years ago called the doodle bug. And it was just like this. It had the doors that lifted up and you got in and then pulled them down.
Oh, that's
It looks like a little tiny scooter car.
It does look like that, doesn't it?
Probably just big enough for two people and nothing else.
Well, I'd love one, but I don't know if I'd want to drive it on the
It wouldn't
interstate with those
be
semis.
No, it'd be dangerous.
But I would love one.
I'll do a little bit, one more here.
Thank you.
U.S. adds more jobs in March. U.S. employers shrugged off signs of weak growth and extended their long stretch of steady hiring in March. They added 215,000 jobs. The unemployment rate ticked up to 5% from 4.9% in February, but mostly for a good reason. More Americans are out there looking for work. It's the fifth time in the past 6 months that the proportion of Americans working or looking for work has increased. It's an encouraging trend after that figure fell to four-decade lows last year. Many Americans, discouraged by a lack of jobs, had given up on their job hunts during the recession. Others stayed at home to take care of family members. Many baby boomers were also retiring. The data suggests that employers remain confident enough in their businesses to add staff. Many analysts estimate that the economy grew at 1%, and continuing job gains indicate that employers may see the slowdown as temporary. The proportion of Americans with jobs rose to 59.9%, the fifth straight increase and the highest level since March of 2009 during the Great Recession. Still, that figure remains below its pre-recession of 62%.
Thank you, Jean. And the hot ref is more happy to yield the stage to the pretty boy. Months after attorney Clete Blakeman's chiseled physique drew national attention after he officiated the Super Bowl, fellow Omaha John Higgins has been chosen to be part of the 10-man officiating crew for the Final Four. That's the same John Higgins in the sun-bleached hair, the target of the @JohnHigginsHair parody account on Twitter and ref-baiting basketball fans across the nation. They started calling me Baywatch or Pretty Boy. I got that wherever I go, Higgins said, and it doesn't matter what league or what part of the country it's in. When asked who's hotter, both laughed. Let's go to this page 2. I'm way hotter, Higgins said. He's got that famous hair, he said, but not the tight shirt. He's teased Blakeman about getting a shirt that fits. Blakeman said it's no contest. Oh, definitely, John, Blakeman said. I'll yield to him every day. He's got the full set of hair. I'm just lucky to get to wear a hat on Sundays. Kidding aside, both agreed it's fun to see the other at the peak of his profession. It's pretty unique, Blakeman said. The Super Bowl and the Final Four in the same town. Sometimes things kind of just come together in the world. Higgins wouldn't say if he'll be part of the new crew for the national championship game Monday in Houston, but ESPN reported Friday that Higgins, the most senior of the officials chosen to work this weekend, will get one of the jobs. Assignments won't be announced until an hour before each game. Wow. Higgins and Blakeman speak often during the football and basketball seasons. They talked this week after Higgins got the Final Four assignment, his 7th. They talk about how to handle crowds and how to handle their jobs. They discuss similarities and differences in big-time football and basketball. Blakeman said the whirlwind of media attention after the Super Bowl wasn't all bad and that it's led to lots of speaking engagements, which he enjoys. Higgins said as much as he gets teased about his hair, he must be doing something right as a referee or he wouldn't keep getting the assignments. He said he thinks it's a good rapport with he has a good rapport with coaches and players, and then they seem to respect him. Evidently, he said, they like the way I call a game. He'll approach this weekend just like any other. He'll focus on the directors from the NCAA and try to have a good pregame meeting with his crew about the coaches and players involved. It's that consistency that people want, he said. For Higgins, who officiates close to 95 games a year, it gets to be just like riding a bike. You can't be surprised. If you are surprised, you miss plays or you're in the wrong spot, Higgins said. If you guess, you are usually wrong. It's interesting about referees, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
it
never
is.
think about them as part of the game.
I know
really.
it. I know it. And Nebraska basketball. This week's physical testing of Nebraska basketball caught those in charge by surprise, but a pleasant one. Despite just ending a 5-month season, the Huskers broke 11 school records with juniors and freshmen. They led the way in the vertical jump, the 10-yard dash, and the pro agility drill. While going through a long season, basketball strength coach Tim Wilson said, "You hope to maintain their strength and performance during the year. But we actually had some guys who went up. I can't explain it." Boyd Epley, Nebraska's Assistant Athletic Director for Strength and Conditioning, heaped praise on the program. When we see a bunch of school records like this, it's because we've had off-season training, period. So it's pretty impressive. Jacobson posted the best performance, a combined number mixing test results. And let's see, I'll go on to the next page here. In comparison with testing last, Jacob Webster, a 6'4", 196-pound guard, broke his program records in the 10-yard dash. I'm happy for Ty, Wilson said. I think he's going to have his best year coming up. He's going to play some overseas, and then he'll be back for a big push for his senior year. Webster is expected to take part in a pre-Olympic international tournament with the New Zealand national team. Wilson said the work of White, Jacobson, and Louisville transfer Antone Gill have broken old records. Nebraska's next performance index will occur in August.
Thank you, Jean. And the Final Four bid a big step for the new Big
Oh,
East.
I know, that's right.
The Big East is back in the Final Four, reinvented and reestablishing itself as one of the best basketball conferences in the country. Villanova plays Oklahoma in Saturday night's first national semifinal.
My little grandson he's 15, plays basketball down in Oklahoma. And boy, is he excited.
Is he excited? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to really love watching the game.
Oh,
Well, and it's going to make the Wildcats it's the first Big East team to reach the Final Four since the conference essentially dropped major college football after the 2013 season. It does reinforce that the reputation of the conference has had for more than 3 decades as a college basketball powerhouse is intact, said Big East Commissioner Bill Ackerman. The Big East breakup came during sweeping Division I conference realignment that started in 2010, with FBS schools such as Pittsburgh, Louisville, and West Virginia jumping to other conferences. The Big East basketball-focused schools decided to go it alone and return to the league its hoops roots. The remaining FBS schools formed the American Athletic Conference. I didn't know all this. And where is it? I lost my article. I'm sorry, everyone. I had it. No, I just had it. I just have to. There we go. Here we go. Okay. There we are. The basketball schools with old school Big East powers such Villanova, Georgetown, and St. John's kept the name in the tournament at Madison Square Garden. The so-called Catholic Seven added Xavier, Creighton, and Butler and received a 12-year, $50 million television deal with Fox's fledgling sports network, FSI. We're equipped and resourced to stay competitive, Ackerman said. The 10-team Big East has received its 15 NCAA tournament bids in its 3 years of existence. 4 the first year, 6 the last year, and 5 this season. 8 of its teams have reached the tournament. The problem has been getting those teams past the first weekend. The Big East had no Sweet 16 teams in 2014 and just one last season. The biggest culprit was Villanova, which went to those tournaments as a 2 and a 1 seed. Villanova was the only Big East team to get through the first weekend this year, but getting all the way to the Final Four goes a long way toward masking the disappointment in building or rebuilding the brand. I think our presidents went in thinking this was going to be more of a marathon than a sprint to reestablish the league, Ackerman said. The fact that it's happening quickly does reinforce their vision that it can be done. And I think hopefully it quiets the naysayers who thought that because the Big East was different, it wouldn't be as good. Wildcats coach Jay Wright, who grew up just outside Philadelphia adoring the Big East, said getting teams in the Final Four helped make the first incarnation of the conference. The year St. John's, Villanova, and Georgetown all got to Lexington in '85, they were new, Wright said. It's kind of woke everybody up. Now the Big East is trying to do it again. We have to prove ourselves not because we're not a good league, but just because we're new, Wright said. It's important we do this, our league does this, and we continue to do this for our league as much as for our school.
And Iowa State University is looking at their football team. Iowa State quarterback Joel Lanning had his moments after earning the starting job midway through last season. The Cyclones will need to see more than just glimpses of promise from Lanning this fall if they hope to end a 3-year bowl drought. Lanning, a junior, is the only Iowa State quarterback who's taken a collegiate snap. His progress this offseason is perhaps the biggest area to watch. Matt Campbell is the first-time coach for the Cyclones. The Cyclones, who have Lanning and redshirt freshmen as quarterbacks, are in camp this summer. That position is all about poise leadership. Number 2 is accuracy in throwing the football. Number 3, great quarterbacks have the ability to have great leadership around them. Then you fit everybody in around that. Lanning, who turned down Nebraska to play for the Cyclones, had been groomed to take over as Iowa's number 1 quarterback. But Lanning forced the issue in 2015, supplanting Sam Richardson as the season crept away, and we're wishing them all success.
Thank you,
It
Jean.
brings us up to 12 o'clock, and everybody have a good week.
All right.
So are you gonna watch the games?
Oh, yeah.
When is the North Carolina versus Syracuse?
They're both tonight.
Both games are
This
tonight.
TB.
So you have to choose which one you're gonna watch?
Well, one's at 5:09 and one's 7:49.
Okay, got it. So you watch both.
TBS, I don't know what that means.
Turner Broadcasting Network.
It'd have to be on national TV, I think.
TBS, I don't.
It's not the Big Ten.
Huh.
It would have to be national TV, I mean, where everybody can see it.
Oh, sweetie, what did you do this week besides sell your house, which
Oh
is
my
enough?
God, honey, that
Did you do anything
took
for
all
yourself
my-
besides lunch?
Went to the doctor.
What?
It was just a merry-go-round, the whole thing.